Hi, everybody. This is Tommy Lasorda. Listen to The Sandlot, the best thing that could happen to you.
The one constant through all the years, Ray, has been baseball.
Are you crying?
It's a part of our past, Ray.
There's no crying.
It reminds us of all that once was good.
There's no crying in baseball.
Just a bit outside.
Baseball will be very, very good to me.
It's a simple game. You throw the ball, you hit the ball, you catch the ball.
Personally, I think we got hosed on that.
The Sandlot Radio Network is on the air. And now, starting pitcher for the Sandlot, former pro player and Major League scout, Ted Howard.
This is National League All-Star Justin Upton.
Hi, this is Shane Victorino.
Hi, this is Albert Pujols.
Hi, this is David Wright.
It's Derek Jeter of the New York Yankees, and you're listening to The Sandlot.
Welcome to the Sandlot Radio Network Downunder podcast. The Sandlot, it's where everybody plays. It's a place of our own. It's our field. It's our neighborhood. It's our team. It's our home. The Sandlot is presented by Terramar Collective and sponsored by Grit Sports Collective, Guzman y Gomez, and by Freestyle Pools Sydney. You can tune in to The Sandlot every weekend on Sirius XM Radio MLB Network podcast platform and on YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, Pandora, Apple Music, and Simplecast. Last week's Sandlot Down Under podcast featured a wrap-up of the World Series with former Major League player, now broadcaster for MLB Networks, Rockies TV, Apple TV, and he was the color guy for the international broadcast of the World Series the last 3 years. He's a regular guest host on The Sandlot. We had Ryan Spilborghs. We also had a legend in Australian baseball, the owner of Gary White's Diamond One Baseball Shop. We had the one and only Gary White, Whitey. This week's Sandlot Radio Network Down Under podcast features another legend in Australian baseball. He's from a great Australian baseball family. We've featured a great American baseball family in the holidays, but one of the greatest Australian baseball families is the Deebles. We'll get more into that, but this man has 7 World Series championship rings, including the one from 2025 that the Dodgers just won. He's been a Major League scout for the Marlins, the Red Sox, and the Dodgers, all at times when they happen to win the World Series. We have John Deeble. We also have our resident baseball fanatic and producer, Nick Wright. We're going to talk about all the awards from the 2025 MLB season, from Cy Young to Rookie of the Year. After what many would argue was the most unbelievable World Series in the history of the game, we now have all the awards from the season. And Nick, there's some controversy because we had a catcher that hit 60 home runs, a switch-hitting catcher that took his team deep into the playoffs, and he did not win a MVP. It went to Aaron Judge, who had an unreal season too, but let's start off with MVP of the American League.
Tad, it's insane. For the first time in MLB history, we have back-to-back MVP winners in both the AL and NL in 2 consecutive seasons. As you just said, Aaron Judge back-to-back, Shohei Ohtani also back-to-back. We'll get to him in a minute. But Tad, Aaron Judge, through some controversy, but he joins Yogi Berra, Mickey Mantle, and Joe DiMaggio as the only Yankees ever to win 3 MVPs. And Tad, I know we both had the big dumper Cal Raleigh. You know, I just think it's crazy because they started the MVP award back in 1931. Cal Raleigh is the only MLB player to hit 60 homers for a playoff team and not win MVP. And he set the record for most by a catcher, switch hitter, set the record for Mariners franchise history. I just think it's a shame that Cal Raleigh didn't win. And Tad, does this make Aaron Judge an all-time Yankee?
Yeah, he's definitely an all-time Yankee because of this. He had an unreal year, 331 with 53 home runs. I mean, that's a year that deserved to win an MVP, but not when a guy catches, switch hits, and hits 60 home runs and takes his team deeper in the playoffs. To me, that's more of an MVP. Aaron Judge, probably the best player in the American League for the year, but for me, Cal was the MVP. Now, National League, of course, Ohtani won his 4th and I think 3rd in a row, and rightfully so. Nobody pitches and hits the way this dude does, and he was valuable as a pitcher and as a hitter to the world champion. So that's an easy one.
Yeah, Tad, this is Ohtani's 4th MVP. All 4, he has been unanimous. You know, I feel like he's just now a little blip in the Angels because I feel like a lot of people are now forgetting that he won the MVP with the Angels in 2021 and 2023. And now that he's with the Dodgers and won back-to-back World Series and MVP with the Dodgers, he is now just a little footnote in the Angels' history.
Now, American League Cy Young was our Screwball, the guy that throws the screwball, Mr. Tarek Screwball. He won his second consecutive Cy Young, and rightfully so. And over in the National League, Paul Skeens did the same, won his second consecutive Cy Young, and he led MLB with a 1.97 ERA. So unbelievable to win a Rookie of the Year and a Cy Young award within his first 2 seasons.
Yes, your Scooble is the first pitcher to claim a back-to-back Cy Young award since Jacob deGrom back in 2018-2019, the first American League pitcher to do it since Pedro Martinez back in 99-2000. And yeah, Tad, my guy Paul Skeens, sophomore year, MVP, won Rookie of the Year last year, sub-2 ERA. I don't think there's much controversy there, but a lot of people from the American League side, Garrett Crochet from Boston also had a good year. Do you think there should be any controversy there for any of the Cy Youngs?
Well, he was close, and any other year, you just look at the numbers that Mr. Scooble put up. He was worthy of winning his second. So, thing with the Boston lefty, he's going to have a chance to win more as he continues to mature. He's young. He's got a chance to win Cy Youngs in the future.
All right, Tad, let's go to the Rookies of the Year. In the American League, your guy, you've been talking about him all year. Nick Kurtz from the Oakland Athletics, soon to be Las Vegas Athletics. In 117 games, he led rookies in homers, RBIs, extra base hits, runs, slugging percentage, and OPS. Just an unbelievable rookie season, unanimously voted. And in the National League, you have Drake Baldwin, catcher for the Atlanta Braves, who also had an amazing year. He was first in WAR, second in batting average, second in home runs, second OPS. Tad, what do you think about these Rookies of the Year?
Kurtz only played in 117 games, and he put up those kind of numbers. Imagine if he would have played the whole season. He was a late call-up. And Baldwin, anytime you got a catcher back there that hits 19 home runs in his rookie year, and he's hitting 274, that's way above league average. And an F-WAR of 3.1, he deserves to be the Rookie of the Year. I didn't hear much about him all year, but in the end, he had the best numbers. Gold Glove, that's one of the cool awards for me. In the American League, catcher was Dylan Dingler. At first base, Ty France. Second base, Marcus Semien. Garcia at third base for the Royals. And then we had Bobby Witt Jr. For the Royals. Stephen Kwan, left fielder for the Guardians. Center field, Raphael for the Red Sox. Abreu, right field for the Red Sox. Max Fried is the pitcher. We also had in the National League, Patrick Bailey from the Giants was the catcher. Matt Olson, first base. Nico Horner at second. Key Brian Hayes won the Gold Glove at third base for the Reds. And Wynn was the shortstop for the Cardinals that won it. Ian Happ at left field. Pete Crow Armstrong, no surprise, in center field. And again, Fernando Tatis Jr.
All right, Ted, that's been Who's Hot, Who's Not Awards Edition.
Don't go away. We'll have more from a legend of Australian baseball. He's from a great American baseball family. He's the manager of the Melbourne Aces. He is the scouting director on the Pacific Rim for the LA Dodgers, John Deeble.
Hey, this is Mark Dollymore here, representative of Cronulla Baseball back in the day. Proud member to be on the Sandlot Baseball show today. I hope you enjoyed what you heard and just live on it. Keep going on, keep trying hard, all the best.
Terramar Collective isn't just a brand, it's a tribute. Born from the Southern California coast and inspired by the legacy of a father who helped shape the board riding world literally. Terramar Collective repurposes vintage flannels and rare finds, blending timeless style with surf heritage. Honor the past, wear the story. Find us on Instagram at Terramar Collective.
GYG has just reinvented the Caesar with our new Caesar salad, Caesar burrito, and Caesar Cali burrito. And I bet you didn't know that Caesar was created in Tijuana, Mexico over 100 years ago by Caesar Cardini. And now we have made the Caesar uniquely GYG. Crunchy Cos lettuce, free-range grilled chicken, or gourmet Caesar dressing, shredded jack cheese, and GYG's corn chips crushed. GYG Caesar, created in Mexico, reinvented by GYG.
When it comes to building your dream pool, experience matters. For 33 years, Freestyle Pools Sydney has delivered quality pools that stand the test of time. Brothers Rob and Ben personally manage every job from start to finish, working closely with skilled, reliable tradies who take pride in their work. With regular industry award-winning builds, the quality of Freestyle Pools truly stands out. Experience, craftsmanship, and service you can trust. Freestyle Pools Sydney, built for life.
Hi, everybody. This is Rick Mundy, former Major League player, former All-Star, and now broadcaster with the Los Angeles Dodgers. You're tuned in exactly where you need to be. It's Sandlot, and it's baseball.
Talking baseball, the man and Bobby fella, the Scooter, the Barber, and the Duke. They knew them all from Boston to Dubuque.
Especially Shohei, Mookie, and the Judge. We're with our Sandlot champion character of the week. It's Hudson Dillo. Huddy, thanks so much for being a guest on the Sandlot.
Thank you for having me.
Now, we just had a World Series. What major league team is it that you like?
Between the Dodgers and the Blue Jays.
That sounds crazy because both those teams were in the World Series and one of them hadn't been there in 32 years, so it sounds a little slanted. But you have some connections to Canada, so I understand that. Who are your favorite players? Who are your favorite MLB players?
My favorite overall of every team is probably Aaron Judge.
Okay. He just won the MVP of the American League.
Yep. Favorite player.
Well, I got to let everybody know why Hudson Castillo is our Sandlot champion character of the week. He's a kid that has great character. And in the acronym CHAMPS, we have coachability. I've had you in camp. I've seen you work on the skills to get better, so you're coachable. Honor, you carry the family name very well. Castillo is a very unique Australian family name, and you carry that family name very well. Plus, another one of the acronyms is attitude, positive mental attitude. I've seen you do that. Mentorship. I've watched you, especially with your brother Parker, be a solid mentor to him because your skills are a little higher than his. He's older and he's bigger and stronger, but he doesn't quite have the skills. And I've seen you be patient with him and work with him. So that shows you can be a mentor. Perseverance. That's something I've seen you do too, because baseball is a game where we fail and you have to deal with failure. And then sportsmanship. That's one of the ones that's kind of tough sometimes. That means all the time we have to win and lose with grace. But Huddy has shown all those things. That's why he's our Sandlot champion character of the week. And that's sponsored by Guzman y Gomez. So that means you're going to get a really cool gift certificate to go have some lunch there one day. There's one that's got to be close to you. And I might have something else cool for you when I get back. So I just want to thank you for being a guest on the Sandlot. But also, let's talk about a couple things that you might have learned in the camp over the last couple of years that I've had a chance to spend time with you.
You've helped me with my fielding, hitting style, technique. You've definitely helped me with catching. Pitching, you've helped a lot with. Fly balls, a lot of that. You've helped me with a good ego on the field. To not drop your head. Something's bad.
You've learned to, when you're not doing well, to be okay with it because it happens to every player. I mean, you just mentioned Aaron Judge. That dude struck out 175 times. He's the MVP of the American League.
Yeah.
So you got to remember that we're going to fail. And I've seen you do it with grace, and you need to continue to do that because it's a huge part of baseball is that we're not always going to get hits. It's part of the game, getting out, and you're getting better at that all the time.
Yeah. It's pretty tough doing something wrong, making the wrong play, but it's baseball, it's fun.
Well, that's the most important thing, that you're having fun, and the better you get, the more fun you're going to have, and I see your skills improving all the time. It's a matter of just playing. You know, you need to play games. I'm hoping we get to that week-long camp because, man, we cover a lot of stuff in that, and everything you do will have a little more polished after 20 hours. And it's at a time when nobody else is doing a whole lot of baseball stuff, so we'll get you ready. In that second half of the season, you'll kick everybody's butt.
Yes.
He's Hudson Castillo. He's our Sandlot champion character of the week. I want to thank you again for being his guest on the Sandlot.
Thank you.
We're with Australian baseball legend, part of a great Australian baseball family, the Deebles, John Deeble. Thanks so much for being a guest on the Sandlot Radio Network podcast Down Under.
How you doing, Ted? Good to speak to you.
I'm not doing as good as you because my team just didn't win the World Series, but I can tell you're doing pretty good. You got grins ear to ear over here, so you must be pretty happy because for 2 years in a row, your team has been better than anybody, and you're walking away with your 7th World Series ring.
Yeah, look, it was probably one of the most memorial World Series. I think it was unbelievable, wasn't it? Went right down to the wire, and it might go down as the best World Series ever. But it was good to be a part of it. I was in LA for the 3 games in LA, and it was it was fantastic, and we were nearly down and out, and to be able to win 2 in Toronto, I think was a huge effort.
Well, let's turn back the clock to the days when John Deeble was a little tyke, deciding on different sports, because you're an athlete, obviously. Your dad was already a guy that was heavily involved in the sport of baseball. Let's talk about sports you played and why baseball ended up being the predominant one for John Deeble.
I think like all kids, I played junior football, I played cricket, and I played baseball. And the baseball was, again, from my father who had played. My mother played 3 sports for Australia, which was, a lot of people don't know that. She played netball, basketball, and softball. So, with my father playing and my brother playing, it was just a natural progression that, the cricket got pushed to the side. And he was a very good cricketer also, and played, I think he was actually a 12th man in the Sheffield Shield game once, but he played district cricket down at Footscray. And it was a natural projection for me to go on and play baseball. And that's how it all started. So I played at Preston as a junior, and I played my whole career there, and had a lot of offers to move, but stayed with the one club my whole career. So it was an option. We weren't pushed to play any sport in particular, but I played cricket up until I was, I think, 16. And then the baseball took over. There was that much practice with junior state teams and Australian teams that the cricket had to go.
Let's talk about those representing Victoria at the state level and then the national teams for Australia. At what age did you first make a state team and then a national team?
Yeah, well, that's interesting you say, because back in those days, I was 9 when I made an under-13 team. So I was lucky enough to play in 10 junior national championships from 9 until, and at that point also they changed it used to be under 13s, 15s and 17s, and when I was midway through they changed the 17s to the 18s. So I was lucky enough to get another year in. So so I played in everyone since I was 9, and probably the best times of my life, and the friendships you make and you keep over those years. I'm still friends with all those guys now, or for the most part. But that they were great times back then, and the national championships back then used to be just full on. It was a war. We'd play against the Mark Marinos, the Craig Shipleys, these types of guys, and it was just full on war.
And back then, baseball was played hard in Australia. And it was a different sport than it is today. And I think, Australians have that tough mentality anyway because of rugby league and rugby union and Aussie rules. They're tough sports. So that it kind of carries over into their baseball. So my time in Australia, especially late 80s, all the way through the 90s and into the 2000s, baseball was played hard there.
Yeah, no, it was. And as I said, we had, especially against New South Wales, it was war when we played. But I was lucky enough in the under-18s. We were 30-0 in the 3 years I played in the under-18s. So probably it's never been done since. It'll never be done again. But look, we had some players back then. There was myself, Phil Dale, we had Sheldon Collins, we had Buck Thorpe, we had David Clarkson, just to name a few. But, we had a team that was back in that era, they were unbeatable. And they went on that group to play for the Waverley Reds and I think won 3 or 4 championships in the ABL. So, it was a great year, or a great era that I was able to play in.
10 of those national championships. What's really cool about that for an Aussie kid, they're always played somewhere different, because I scouted for 11 years, and that took me to places like Mount Gambier and Alice Springs and Perth and Melbourne and Geelong and Lismore and, Gold Coast and Brisbane and Melbourne. So all the spots that you got to go and see took you around Australia. And if you weren't playing baseball, you probably wouldn't have made all those types of trips.
No, that's correct. Yes, so I got to see Australia. Absolutely, you're right there. Sort of jumping a bit forward, I'm not sure if you were scouting when we went to Alice Springs and scouted the under-18, and it was that hot and that many flies. I remember behind home plate in the car with my radar gun out the window. But we had some good times both playing and scouting. But but the playing side of it was fantastic. And of course, back then you got picked from an Australian team to go to Georgia Southern and all that sort of stuff. So, it was really cool back then.
after the Victorian stuff, you get to see all of Australia doing the national champions. But when you make the Australian national team, now you get to see some of the world.
Yes. So, look, back then there wasn't World Championships, but we would go to Georgia Southern College. I think I went in 1978, 79. That was the first year that Craig Shipley went over, who was our first Australian major leaguer, and he got offered a scholarship at Alabama. I was offered a scholarship at a junior college in Georgia Southern, but back then it was, it wasn't viable for me. Randy Gailey, the coach's name was, but it was a junior college. But again, there really nothing come of it. I do remember though, when we left, we would always go to Dodger Stadium to watch the Dodgers play in a 3-game series. And so ironic, in 1978, I got a Tommy Lasorda photo given to me, and he signed it, and it said, "To John Deeble, a future Dodger." And ironically, from 1978 to 2017, I become a Dodger. So, which was pretty cool, and I've kept that photo.
Well, we'll get into all the different teams you've scouted for, but to be a Dodger after that and being, so you were a Dodger fan, is what you're saying. You were a Dodger fan from that point forward.
Well, I think we all were, because the Dodgers actually were pretty smart back then in having the team come, and your name was up on the scoreboard at Dodger Stadium, that the Australian under-18 team was there. It was pretty well done. And then, of course, Craig Shipley signed with them, so we all followed the Dodgers. And I remember Grant Dennis got to try out with the Dodgers. I think Phil Dale may have. Craig Shipley definitely did. And, so I think just automatically every young Australian kid followed the Dodgers.
Back then, too, the coverage of Major League Baseball for you guys was so limited. Your exposure was maybe a video, or something. There wasn't a lot of exposure, and the internet didn't exist. You couldn't look anything up. So it seemed like a far thing for you guys back then, especially.
Well, I remember when I was a kid, you used to go down to Channel 7. And I remember doing this a couple of times to actually watch the World Series at Channel 7 on the old video reel. And, baseball people would go down there, they would have a night. And I remember the Big Red Machine was playing. I can't remember who they were playing, but the Big Red Machine with Johnny Bench and Tony Perez and, that famous Cincinnati Reds team. And ironically, again, when I was with the Marlins, ended up being one of my good friends was Tony Perez, who was working for the Marlins, who was in the Big Red Machine. And I got to spend a lot of time with him over the years. And in fact, I just ran into his son, Eduardo, at the hotel, at the Western Hotel for the World Series. So it's so funny. It just takes you off in so many different areas, that, the people you meet and the things you see and how they all add up, from watching the Big Red Machine and then actually meeting one of the guys.
Well, you think about this. There was a guy on Saturday Night Live that used to do this character, and he'd say baseball's been very, very good to me. Somehow I got Vinny Castilla to randomly say that same thing, because Vinny's had a great baseball life, and he's with the Rockies now as kind of an ambassador type of a coach, and goes to spring training, hits fungos, he loves it. And I got him to say that very thing. Baseball's been very, very good to me. Well, John Deeble, I got to tell you, the game of baseball has been very, very, very good to you, because of, after our break, we'll go into some of the different things that you've got to do because of this game, and the exposure and the travel that you've got to do because of this game. It's pretty incredible. It's quite a story.
Yeah, look, absolutely. Baseball has been fantastic. It's been my life. And, at some points where, even local baseball, you really need to push yourself, if my kids are playing, which they still play. And, because a carpenter does his carpentry job, when he goes home, the last thing he wants to do is be a carpenter. And at times in the later years, sometimes it gets difficult, and the travel and things like that. But, I've got absolutely no complaints. I've been so lucky, and the people that I've met and the people that trusted, an Australian kid getting offered a job to go over to the States with the Marlins back in 1993, who'd never had any pro baseball experience, was, just the guys, John Bowles, Rob Leary, Dave Dombrowski, Gary Hughes. I ran into Gary Hughes' son the other day. I was just telling him the same story. Without those guys, I wouldn't have even scratched that. I wouldn't have even got over there. But they trusted in me, and I remember with the Marlins, they gave me the balls and the bats and said, "Okay, you're managing rookie ball." So baseball has been fantastic, and I've been 33 years now in professional baseball.
He's John Deeble. He's a legend in Australian baseball. We're going to take a quick break. Don't go away. We got more on the Sandlot Radio Network Downunder podcast with John Deeble when we return.
Hi, this is Todd Helton, and I still listen to The Sandlot.
This is Ryan Braun from the Milwaukee Brewers, and you're listening to The Sandlot.
This is Nate McLeod, National League All-Star with the Pittsburgh Pirates, and you're listening to The Sandlot.
This is Mike Cameron from the Milwaukee Brewers, and I'm still listening to The Sandlot.
I think I'll go on and walk about and find out what it's all about.
GYG has just reinvented the Caesar with our new Caesar salad, Caesar burrito, and Caesar Cali burrito. And I bet you didn't know that Caesar was created in Tijuana, Mexico over 100 years ago by Caesar Cardini. And now we have made the Caesar uniquely GYG. Crunchy Cos lettuce, free-range grilled chicken, or gourmet Caesar dressing, shredded jack cheese, and GYG's corn chips crushed. GYG Caesar, created in Mexico, reinvented by GYG.
When it comes to building your dream pool, experience matters. For 33 years, Freestyle Pools Sydney has delivered quality pools that stand the test of time. Brothers Rob and Ben personally manage every job from start to finish, working closely with skilled, reliable tradies who take pride in their work. With regular industry award-winning builds, the quality of Freestyle Pools truly stands out. Experience, craftsmanship, and service you can trust. Freestyle Pools Sydney, built for life.
Terramar Collective isn't just a brand, it's a tribute. Born from the Southern California coast and inspired by the legacy of a father who helped shape the board riding world literally. Terramar Collective repurposes vintage flannels and rare finds, blending timeless style with surf heritage. Honor the past, wear the story. Find us on Instagram at Terramar Collective.
Hey everybody, this is Trevor Hoffman, a Hall of Famer and a San Diego Padre, and you're listening to The Sandlot.
We're back with John Deeble. John, thanks for sticking around. We're going to talk about the ABL because when I came over in 1989, I played on a team called the Sydney Metros, and it was a bit of a nutty situation, and I didn't know what I was getting myself into. There was no way of researching Australia. I went to the library and got a book, and it was published in the 50s, so it was pretty primitive information for me. And I just showed up and, hey, here we go. Let's play ball. Same game, different country. And, man, that first year, did I ever experience some things, and including going down to playing where the Waverly Reds played in this massive stadium that held 105,000 people. And they figured out how to tuck 4,000 into the right behind home plate area. And, you know, it was a nice crowd, but it didn't seem like it when the stadium had 105,000 seats in it.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to be involved in the game where they had 20,000. It was an RACV night. They pulled 20,000 there one night, and but yeah, it was a good place to play. I really enjoyed playing out there. I played 2 years out there when the Monarchs folded, and old Dougie Clarkson and all the old Waverley guys, really got behind it, and they were champions for I think 3 years in a row.
And David Clarkson, the first year of the league, 444. That's a number I'll never forget because hitting 400 is one thing, but 444, that's just another level. And he had one of the worst bats. It was like this dingy Mizuno thing, and he didn't even use one of the real cheater bats.
Clean.
And but man, that dude could hit. I mean, we never got him out. We never got you out. That's the other thing. Here's this John Deeble character, soft throwing lefty, crafty as hell. And I'm like, why aren't we hitting this dude? Let's go. And then we couldn't get you out of the plate. Threw left, batted right. You look at your stats from the first 3 years in the ABL, you tore it up as a hitter. And then you started pitching more. And your later years in the ABL, you're dealing as a pitcher. So pitching, hitting, you were a Shohei in the ABL before Shohei.
Well, look, I really wasn't that good. I competed, but, I played for Australia for a long time, but, I wasn't a stalwart. I wasn't a main event type of guy, but, I just competed and I was a pitcher early in my career. It was only later on I started hitting, and I can't even remember why, but, I had a good bat to ball skill, but there wasn't a lot of power there and I couldn't run. But, look, I wasn't that great a player and again, pretty lucky there that, back in those days that, professional players couldn't play for Australia. So I might not ever have played for Australia if back then the professional, although there wasn't that many of them. But, look, we had a lot of fun in those leagues, and, to be able to hit and pitch was great. And then the year that all your guys come over, Van Sly, and with your recommendation, they offered me to manage. So I ended up managing, pitching and hitting, and we won. So we won the national championship. We beat Mike Young's team. They had Greg Jolks, Tony Adamson, and they were $1 million to 1 on, and we actually beat them in straight sets, actually, to win the 93, I think it was, national championship.
You mentioned Tony Adamson, and I'm pulling him out of the woodwork from Perth to get him on the show, too, because one of the things I'm doing in this Sandlot Down Under podcast is bringing some of the legends of Australian baseball out of the woodwork and honoring them for what they were able to do when they were players and what they've continued to do in their careers. And, for you, being a player, being a manager, I got a chance to do the same thing, because of my buddy, me and Voight took the chance to put together this Futura baseball card thing. It went good enough to where that failing Sydney Metro's license was up for sale, so we bought it. I found James Donaldson to put up the rest of the money to run a team for a couple of years, and we kept doing the Futura thing, which was cool because a lot of guys that would have never had a baseball card ended up getting baseball cards. And I just think, 30 years later, that's a really cool thing.
Yeah, and you still see them around, actually, the Ventura baseball cards and online. And look, that was a really good time, and the quality of the baseball was good. Greg Jolks from Perth, who was a former major leaguer, he sort of set the standard. And, I was just thinking the other day, it was really funny, you mentioned Tony Adamson. Someone should put together a all-star Australian ABL team, and, you'd have to say Tony Adamson would probably be the first baseman. No. He was a great player, power hitter, and great athlete. He's a scratch golfer. He played AFL football. But again, it's interesting. The guys and being major leaguers, they've all been multi-sport guys. David Nielsen, I think, played rugby. Craig Shipley was an Australian rugby union player. Liam Hendricks was an AFL footballer. I think if you go through, Trent Durrington played NRL football. So a lot of the guys, Mark Hutton, Australian rules footballer, a lot of these guys that have played in the big leagues were actually two-sport athletes.
I think our current one, Mr. Mead, he was a rugby guy too, or AFL guy, right?
AFL guy and a scratch golfer. So, they say he's a fantastic golfer, but no, I never really had a lot to do with him. I've spoken to him quite a few occasions and congratulated him when he got to the major leagues. And, again, another multi-sport athlete.
And Australians really are dedicated to their sport, and there's really good athletes in the country. And I always said that if Major League Baseball spent the amount of money they did in the Dominican, Puerto Rico, and Venezuela on their academies over that period of time, 30 years, which it's been a ton, by the way, you would have had that many more Australians get to the big leagues because they just didn't have the exposure or the instruction at a young enough age to really compete at the highest level once they got there. But they set that up in those other countries, and they could have done it in Australia as well because, man, you got great athletes. There's no question of that.
Yeah, look, I couldn't agree more with you. And I was thinking another one, Luke Hughes played in the major leagues. He was an AFL footballer. But I remember when I played for the Monarchs, we were owned by the Footscray Football Club. And the players, when we'd practice on the field, they'd come out and hit and mess around with the baseballs. And Chris Grant, Ilya Grigic, I remember, and Steve McPherson, Doug Hawkins, these types of guys. Amazing just picking up a baseball bat and how good they were. Many years ago, I remember calling Craig Shipley. I was working with Craig, our first Australian big leaguer in Boston. The AFL invited me to their combine, their sports combine, all their testing. And I rang up Ship that day. I said, I found the athletes. He said, where are they? I said, they're all playing football. So, look, if you got the best athletes, there's no doubt that we could have a lot more major leaguers. And unfortunately, baseball's become a sport that's got too expensive. And, because you need a pair of shoes, you need a glove, you need a bat, you need a hat, you need a uniform. And it's become expensive. Basketball, you need a pair of shoes and a basketball. Football, same thing, pair of shoes and a footy boots and a rugby or a football. So, that's one of the hiccups. Cricket's become very expensive also. I did a couple of tryouts. I was hounded to do a tryout with David Warner one day, former Australian cricketer up here on the Gold Coast. And I was blown away with his bat-to-ball skill. And I said to him, have you played Little League? Or he said, no, it's the first time I've picked up a baseball bat. And it blew my mind. And, so these athletes that have never played the game before, Adam Gilchrist had a tryout with us also, had a very, very, very good bat-to-ball skill. Unfortunately, they all thought they could go straight to the major leagues. And I said, no, you'd start in rookie ball. And you'd be making back then $1,200 a month and riding on buses every day, but I think they were quite shocked at that. But so great athletes have come out of Australia, and I think we've had 39. I reckon we're very close to having our 40th big leaguer pretty soon.
Well, we used to train at Tonkin Oval in Cronulla, and Glenn McGraw lived around the corner, and he used to walk by all the time, and every once in a while I'd stop and talk to him, and one day I convinced him to just come over and play some catch and then throw a couple. And I had a ray gun. You remember how slow those were? And he hit 90 after like 4 throws. It wasn't great arm action or anything, but he was so tall and he already had whip. I reckon a little bit of work with him and changing his action, and he could have been a 100-mile-an-hour guy.
Yeah. Same with Brett Lee. Brett Lee, I think, was 86, 88 miles an hour. But back then, that's my excuse about throwing softly. The old ray guns, they're not like the guns are today. So that's my excuse for being a soft thrower.
Me too. We'll stick with that story. People don't believe that, though, but those things, if you put a ray up against one of these new guns, it's 4 to 5 miles an hour slower. So whatever.
Absolutely.
And that's what we had to go on back in the day. That's why the average was, back then they said the average Major League fastball was 89. Now it's like 93.
Yeah, well, I think it's even higher. You go into spring training these days, and everyone's 97 or 102, and I think the average fastball's gone up, but unfortunately, no one's throwing strikes anymore, and we've lost the art of pitching mechanics and commanding. But in saying all that, I was watching a podcast on I think it was Greg Maddux the other day, and it was like learn velocity and then learn command. You don't go the other way, but I don't know. So, unfortunately at the national championships, I think there was 278 walks last year. It's an area in Australian baseball that needs to be addressed, that's for sure.
And then the other thing with hitters, I watch them go up there with the intention of taking. They're not going up there and firing hips with the intention of swinging. And so that's one of the things I teach the young kids is intend to swing on every pitch. If it's not a strike, don't fire. But you're going to get that hip going, So you see them standing there expecting a ball. And it's because, like you said, there's just not that many strike throwers anymore. Maddux could get everybody out today. And there's people that say, no, he wouldn't even be bull. He would just trick them all.
Yeah. Well, I often wonder now, like, whether Jamie Moyer, he won 250 games in the big leagues, whether he'd even get signed. Soft throwing lefty, but boy, could he pitch. He had a change-up, and, he wasn't a big guy, but, I wonder now whether he'd even be signed because everyone wants velocity.
Yeah, and yet those guys that you're mentioning, Moyer in his prime, pitching today would still get people out. It's all about disrupting timing.
Absolutely.
Pitching to soft contact. Let's do that. Soft contact is outs. So spin rate and velocity, strikeouts, all that stuff. Yeah, you know what it does? It shortens careers.
It's really funny you say that. I've been managing the Melbourne Aces for the last 10 years, and just the last couple of years, I got my pitchers saying, can we get the Rapsodo out? And, what for? Might be like, what for? How about getting up there and competing? They want the Rapsodo every pitch to go and look at, and we've lost the plot. And, we've got guys in Australia walking around with, the Rapsodo is no good if you're throwing 70 miles an hour or if you're throwing 78 miles an hour. And my players now down there, and I won't repeat on here what I say to them, but, I don't understand. They want to have a look at the Rapsodo and their spin efficiency But, the data and the research now, if you talk to the people at Tread, that spin rates, it's a nothing now. What everyone's looking for is extension, drive off the plate, extension. Obviously, if you're, closer to the plate when you release the ball, you're going to be harder to hit. So, it goes in waves, but, our kids need to long toss here in Australia. They need to build arm strength, and they need mechanics to learn how to pitch and throw strikes. It's not that hard. It's pretty simple.
7-time world champion, John Deeble. We're going to take a quick break. Don't go away. We have more on the Sandlot Radio Network podcast, Down Under, when we return.
Hey, this is Mike Myers, former left-handed pitcher of Major League Baseball, played 13 years. Everybody out there, listen to the Sandlot, have a great time, enjoy the summer, and keep on swinging for the fences.
Do you want more than just wins for your kids? Do you want confidence, character, and grit? At Grit Sports Collective, we help young athletes play with purpose and train with passion. With elite coaching in baseball and basketball, we're building more than skills, we're building competitors. Because greatness starts with mindset and is earned through sweat. Grit Sports Collective. Play fierce, train harder. Now enrolling in San Diego, California. Visit gritsportscollective.com and sign up today.
GYG has just reinvented the Caesar with our new Caesar salad, Caesar burrito, and Caesar Cali burrito. And I bet you didn't know that Caesar was created in Tijuana, Mexico over 100 years ago by Caesar Cardini. And now we have made the Caesar uniquely GYG.
Crunchy Cos lettuce, free-range grilled chicken, or gourmet Caesar dressing, shredded jack cheese, and GYG's corn chips crushed. GYG Caesar, created in Mexico, reinvented by GYG.
When it comes to building your dream pool, experience matters. For 33 years, Freestyle Pools Sydney has delivered quality pools that stand the test of time. Brothers Rob and Ben personally manage every job from start to finish, working closely with skilled, reliable tradies who take pride in their work. With regular industry award-winning builds, the quality of Freestyle Pools truly stands out. Experience, craftsmanship, and service you can trust. Freestyle Pools Sydney, built for life.
Terramar Collective isn't just a brand, it's a tribute. Born from the Southern California coast and inspired by the legacy of a father who helped shape the board riding world literally. Terramar Collective repurposes vintage flannels and rare finds, blending timeless style with surf heritage. Honor the past, wear the story. Find us on Instagram at Terramar Collective.
It was pretty much decided for me to play baseball when I was born.
The Sandlot's where it all starts, doesn't it?
I wasn't bigger than everybody. I just threw harder.
It doesn't take any talent to hustle.
If you don't pull for the Dodgers, there's a good chance you may not get into heaven.
Something happening here.
We're back with a member of a great Australian baseball family. His dad and his two boys and himself have been national players for Australia, and right now he's got one of the best jobs there is as a scout for the LA Dodgers. John, thanks for sticking around for a third segment on the Sandlot Podcast. John, we've talked about your early days. We talked about your playing days. Now we got to get into after the playing days as a baseball guy. We end up managing and scouting. So again, as a player, coach, and part owner of the Sydney Wave, that one of those seasons I played in the States for Salt Lake, and the Trappers were owned by Van Sly and Bill Murray. And because I was involved at that level, I was even on the board of directors of the ABL because the Sydney Wave had a seat and I was the guy. So I had some inside information, and he was always in my head about the ABL because he had an interest in buying a team. He ended up doing that. And he said, "Who's the guy in Melbourne?" And I said, "Well, if I was going to hire a manager in Melbourne, it'd be John Deeble." Well, I'm sure there was a lot of other factors, but he ended up hiring you, and you managed in the ABL for many, many years after that. So let's talk about that first, and leading into, the Australian national team and scouting with all these different major league clubs.
Yeah, well, I was out, the Monarchs after the first year were out of the league, and I went over and played with the Melbourne Reds for 2 years. And I remember that Gary Hughes and Van Sly had come out to see me play. I remember clearly I went 0 for 5 with 3 strikeouts. And I think they turned to some people and they said, "We really want this guy." Anyway, we were part owned by Van Sly, Bill Murray, Kevin Costner, I think, might have been involved at some point there too, and the Footscray Football Club. So they asked me to manage, and I was still playing. And anyway, I ended up taking the job. I didn't know what I was doing, and we actually won the first year with a group of rejects. We had, Ronnie Carruthers, we had Damien Shanahan's and Craig Koenigs and these types of guys, and we beat Perth over in Perth. So, from there, John Bowles, we were affiliated with the Florida Marlins. So John Bowles, who was the head of player development and probably a guy that I owe everything to, getting over there, him and Gary Hughes and Owen Freeman, they offered me a job, and I was working with the Western Bulldogs at the time, and I turned the job down. And they came back the next year and said, "We've got to have you working for us." So I took the job, and I was going to be a coach in rookie ball And so I remember flying over my first time over there as a Marlin. I got to LA and I'm thinking, what the hell am I doing teaching Americans how to play baseball? And they were fantastic. Basically hear the balls, go out there and do it. So, I was a hitting coach the first year, and then I started managing. So I managed with the Marlins for 7 years. And in 2000, our owner, Mr. Henry, he purchased the Florida Marlins and then sold them to buy the Boston Red Sox. And he took 3 of us over with him, and I don't know why I was one of them, but David, Chad, myself, Louis Ahawa, and might have been David Finley also. We went across to the Red Sox. But before that, in 97, we won the World Series in Florida after 5 years as an expansion team, which is basically unheard of. So we won the World Series in 97. In 2001, I went across to the Boston Red Sox, and I was scouting Asia. I managed in A-ball, and we won the World Series in 2004, and I was lucky enough to get another ring. It was the first in 84 years, 84 diamonds. There's a lot of history with that ring, and that place was just rocking. I say to people all the time, when they say, what's Boston like? I said, it's like everyone in Victoria, Barrack, and for Collingwood, multiply it 10 times. The place is just crazy. Yeah, so I was managing and scouting then. Was lucky enough to sign Okajima, Tozawa, Matsuzaka, and that wasn't just me. Craig Shipley. Before that, so Craig Shipley, who's a real close mate of mine, he used to come down when I was managing in rookie ball because he lived in West Palm Beach, and when we played in West Palm Beach against the Expos, Ship would come down and chat because he lived around the corner, and we'd sit and talk, and he'd sit on the bench. I got him to talk to our kids, 12-year major leaguer. And then one day he come down laughing, and he had a radar gun and a stopwatch, and he said, I'm now a scout. He said, I've got no idea what to do. But I tell you what, you talk about a guy that picked it up quick. In my opinion, probably the best scout ever. He can identify and scout players. And when Theo Epstein was named the general manager, he called me and he said, listen, I need you to call Craig Shipley. I worked with him in San Diego. We need to hire him. So I rang Ship. He became my boss, and we dominated in the scouting. We dominated Asia with those guys I mentioned. We won 2007 World Series, 2009 World Series. I was lucky enough in 2005, because of Theo and Ship, I got to coach in the major leagues in 2005 with Boston. And with Terry Francona, I learned so much from him. What a great guy, what a great manager. He talked about communication. He talked about being a great communicator and managing your bullpen. If you can do that, you can become a really good manager. And, the rest is history with him. He's going to go into the Hall of Fame, Tito. I just ran into him last year in spring training, and he was so happy to see me, and, we hugged. But, yeah, so I was there, and I actually said to Theo, listen, I can't do this. I got a family at home. I was living in Boston and Fort Myers, and my family were home. We had a young daughter and 2 young boys, and my wife was home, running the show. So, I got the full time into the scouting, and Ship and I had so much success. When we walk into a stadium, teams would go, oh, here they come. What are they going to do? And we had, we used to have this saying, we'd sign someone, and the saying was, what the F just happened, could the other teams, because, we'd go in there and we'd just grab who we could, and we had a lot of success. So in 2017, so we won 3 World Series in Boston. In 2017, I got headhunted to be the director of Asian Pacific operations with the Dodgers. So I've been there 7 years. We've won 2 World Series. We've signed Ohtani. We've signed Yamamoto. We've signed Roki Sasaki. We've signed Ha-Seong Kim. So we've had a lot of success in Asia. And, we work really hard. Obviously it helps being with the LA Dodgers. Our ownership's fantastic. They're willing to spend money. Magic Johnson's an owner. Mr. Walter is the primary owner. And, they give you the leeway to go and get your job done. There's not a lot of interference. I work with Galen Carr now. We've got a great Asian staff that work really hard. So, and we're not finished. There's a lot of players over there that we still want to sign. So, we'll keep working hard. And people don't understand, it's very competitive when you've got 30 teams chasing the same player. Yeah. But, it does help when you're an LA Dodger. But so I've been over there for 7. I'm going into my 8th year now, and I've loved it there. Coaching, the technology they have. I'm not sure I could manage again now. I'm obviously too old, but just what they do now in coaching and development and the high-tech stuff. And it's blown my mind what the Dodgers have. And we've got a great leader in Andrew Friedman and Brandon Gomes. These guys are fantastic to work with, and they're just like us. Like they'll come out and they'll have a drink and they'll play darts and they'll play pool. Very competitive guys, but we've had a great time in LA and probably finished my career there, I'd imagine.
Well, man, I got to tell you, the guys that you mentioned just now for the Dodgers, they had such a huge impact in this last World Series. And without them, they don't win the World Series. So whatever you're doing over there for the Dodgers in Asia, keep it up.
Yeah, look, it's a team effort. We've got Galen Carr heading it up. We've got Ishmael Cruz that plays a big part. My staff in Japan, Toru and Yoga are fantastic, and Dean Kim in Korea. I've got Min Sung in Korea. We have Alan Lin. Everyone played a part in all these guys. And it wasn't just me. It wasn't just one person. But it was a total team effort. And that's the way we work. Like if you're not a good teammate and you're not willing to be a teammate, well, we can't have you. We have to all work together. And that's one thing that we do. And we've had a lot of success. And, hopefully we can continue that success.
Now, you mentioned that, the Dodgers, the team that they have, the ownership that they have, and what they're willing to do to win. And the formula is obviously working, and a lot of other teams really can't compete with that formula. Real quickly, I just want you to run through national teams that you played on and coached that won medals, Melbourne Aces, championships. And the Melbourne Aces now are kind of on their own path, which is pretty cool. And I have a feeling you had a lot to do with that, with your Asian connection. It just seems like a something that's more viable for that particular club, and hopefully the rest of the league can jump in on it with you.
I was a bench coach. When I finished playing, I was a bench coach with the Australian team with Mike Young. We won the 1999 World Cup, Intercontinental Cup. And in 2000, Youngie had a blow-up. And originally he wasn't happy with me because he was totally wrong because they were going to get rid of him. And I don't even know what happened. To this day, I have no idea what happened, but with the Australian board that they wanted to get rid of him. Well, they did get rid of him. And I actually rang, and I've told him this, I rang Mark Peters, who was the president at the time. I said, listen, leave him there. We're fine. Everything's fine. He's got a good support staff around him, and he needs to lead us into the 2000 Olympics. And basically, he said, you just stick to your job. Don't worry about what we're doing. And I said, well, the players are happy. Everyone's happy. We need him managing in 2000. So I just want to let you know. But they got rid of him. And then in the September, they called Phil Dale, Tony Harris and myself in, and they said, they asked me to manage the team. And so I managed the team in 2000 Olympics. But look, I look back now and I wasn't ready to manage that team. I just wasn't ready. I was managing in rookie ball, and now I've got all these big leaguers. And it was disastrous, I'll be honest, and that's my responsibility. But, we really underperformed in the Sydney Olympics. But, Don Knapp and Jeff Pearce, who was a great supporter, they told me you're going back again in 2004. And the mistakes that I made in 2000, I don't think we would have won a silver medal in Athens without the mistakes of 2000. There's no doubt about that and what I've learned. And we every time I played for Australia, or every time I coached Australia, we had to rise to a level that, we were overachieving all the time. Anyway, I remember hopping off the bus in Athens, and we had David Nielsen, we had Graham Lloyd, we had Phil Stockman, we had Williams, we had Glenn Williams, we had Chris Oxspring. And I hopped off the bus, our first game, and I thought to myself, wow, these guys are playing down a level. This is the first time this has ever happened. So, and I remember at the Olympics in Athens, our whole thing was executing perfectly. And whatever we did, whether it was a physio, whether it was me, whether it was whatever, you had to execute perfectly. What does that mean? We wanted the hitters to get good quality pitches to drive. We want pitchers to throw quality strikes down in the zone. Infielders, get behind every ball, replace your feet, make a quality throw to first base. Outfielders, get behind the ball, hit your cutoffs. And it wasn't about winning. It wasn't about scoring. It was about execution. And we thought that if we executed perfectly, the game would take care of itself. And I remember we lost the first game. We faced the Yankees, big leaguer, Chen Ming Wong, dominant pitcher with the Yankees. We faced him and Sal, the Seattle guy, and they beat us. Cuba had a guy named Palmer throwing 96, a left-hander. They beat us. And we were down 0-2. And I remember everyone was pretty beaten up, and Graham Lloyd hopped up, and you know Lloyd, he doesn't really say a whole lot, but he got up and he said, I remember in the bus, unsolicited, he got up and he said, in 1997 we were down 2 games against the Atlanta Braves, and we come back and won 3 and 4 and won the World Series. He said, just keep executing, we're doing great. Well, from that day, we rattled off 6 wins. We beat Japan twice in 3 days. We went to the gold medal game, and I think probably the young kids watching this wouldn't remember, but we got cheated in the end. And 12 months later, I got told by an official that we weren't going to be allowed to win that gold medal. All the Latin umpires but yeah, so we won a silver medal. It probably will never happen again. And I went on to manage 5 World Baseball Classics. We beat Mexico down in Mexico, where they pulled the bolts out of the seats and started throwing them at us after the game. We had to get a bus onto the field to get us out of the stadium. We've had some fantastic wins. We've beaten Cuba a lot of times. We finished 5th in the World Championships on 3 occasions. So, it was a great time. And, you look back at that, I spent 18 years as the Australian manager. And, we had a lot of success. We ended up being 5th or 6th in the world. And I'm not sure we are now, but, I think we're probably in the top 12. But they were great times and just the great people you meet along the way. And I had a great coaching staff. Tony Harris was fantastic. He was our field coordinator. And the one thing that I was very big on was having people do their job. Tony was our catching coach. He was our third base coach. He was the on-field. He ran everything on-field because he's so organised. Phil Dale ran the pitches. Graham Lloyd ran the bullpen. He was in charge of social events, but he ran our bullpen. Pat Kelly, fantastic coach, ran the infielders. Paul Elliott, first base coach, ran the outfielders. And just allowing everybody to do their job. And, we had a lot of success.
Now, real quick, I'm going to mention some of the staff you put together with the Melbourne Aces, because Justin Huber, we both saw play at Alice Springs before he signed with the Mets. And that year at Alice Springs, Paulie Weichert was another guy that we were all on that signed with the Pirates. There might have been a couple of other guys that year from that tournament. But you have Justin Huber over there with the Aces. You have Pete Moylan, one of the best pitchers to ever come out of Australia. And you got Graham Lloyd, a 2-time world champion with the Yankees. So you put together a staff to be proud of there with the Aces. And I had to mention that because those guys are awesome.
Absolutely. And look, I'm a big believer in, you surround yourself with, a lot of people surround themselves with people lower than them because they want control. I've got the complete opposite view. Surround yourself with better people than you. And Peter Moylan might be as good a pitching coach as I've ever been around. He is unbelievable pitching coach. I don't think he's a great manager, and I think he'll tell you that because he managed one. But Lloydie, he's got so much knowledge for our younger kids, and I don't think they utilise him enough. He's got so much knowledge and so much to give. 2-time world champion. Played 12 years with the New York Yankees and some time with Toronto. You don't do that unless you're really good, and I don't think we utilise him in this country with his knowledge. We've also got the Damien Shanahans and the Scotty Meagers and these types of guys. We've got a guy named Naga, Japanese guy, older guy, comes down and throws BP. So I've got Kelly Zeblin, who I think should be in professional baseball. He's that good a coach. He went to the University of Hawaii, played professional baseball. He coaches down in Victoria. This guy's a star. So, I let them do their job and everyone goes out and, we've got a well-oiled machine down there. And, again, get people better than you are. And like Scotty Meager knows he studied catching. He knows way more about catching. Moylan knows way more about pitching. Kelly Zeblin knows way more about infield play than I do. But it's just managing the people. It's not going out there. And, I talk to the players a lot. I really sat Aaron Whitefield down. When he had a bad couple of years, he changed his game. And I sat him down. First time he didn't listen, but then he's come around and said, I'm ready to listen. And, he was trying to hit home runs. It's not your game. He's an 80 defender. He's an 80 runner. Put the ball in play and be a terrorist on the bases. So he's back to that. And all of a sudden his batting average has gone up to, I think he hit 380 last year. So, we've got a great staff down there. And look, everyone blames me for coming out of the league. I had absolutely nothing to do with it. absolutely nothing to do with it. I was as shocked as anybody. And but we went to the Korean 4-leg this year, and what a great time it was. Stadiums were great. There weren't that many people there, but it was like Geelong, Korea. Most of the teams. One team was ordinary, but the rest of them were very competitive, and that was great. And we've got a whole lot of games this year. I don't know what's going to happen down the track. I have no idea. I'm on the back end of it, and I'm waiting for L&D Sam McGraw to get his green card because he'll manage the Aces, and I'll move off to the side into the sunset. But so we're going to play probably 40 games this year with the Aces, and it's a shame it's not all together, but that's completely out of my hands.
He's John Deeble. He's part of a great American baseball family. His dad, Don, himself, and then he's got Jai and Ricky, all playing baseball at high levels. That's, 60-something years of baseball involvement in Australia. Been a very lucky man to be involved in the clubs that he has over the years, the contacts he's made, and what he's meant to the game of Australia. Put him on the map, helped him win medals. John Deeble, thanks so much for being a guest on the Sandlot Down Under podcast.
You're welcome, Tad, and it's good to catch up, man. One of my favorites.
Thanks for listening to the Sandlot Radio Network Down Under podcast. I want to thank our resident baseball fanatic and producer, Nick Wright, for the rundown on all the awards from the 2025 MLB season. I also want to thank Australian baseball legend, now Pacific Rim scouting coordinator for the LA Dodgers, coming off his 7th World Series championship, from a great Australian baseball family, John Deeble. Remember, you can listen to the latest Sandlot Radio Network podcast Down Under every Sunday on the Sirius XM Radio MLB Network podcast platform, and on YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, Pandora, Apple Music, and Simplecast. Please explore the Sandlot Radio Network Facebook and Instagram pages for video content with the major league players. Also, check out SandlotRadioNetwork.com website for photos and reels from our long history of covering everything from the Sandlot to the big leagues. The Sandlot has been presented by Terramar Collective and sponsored by the Sandlot Radio Network, Grit Sports Collective, Guzman y Gomez, GYG, the best Mexican food in Australia, and Freestyle Pool Sydney. The Sandlot, it's where everybody plays. It's a place of our own, it's our field, it's our neighborhood, it's our team, it's our home. I'm your host, Tad Powers.
Damn it, who typed a question mark on the teleprompter? For the last time, anything you put on that prompter, Burgundy will read.
Is this heaven?
It's Iowa. Is there a heaven?
Oh, yeah. It's the place dreams come true.
Hey, Dad? You want to have a catch?
I'd like that.
Terramar Collective isn't just a brand, it's a tribute. Born from the Southern California coast and inspired by the legacy of a father who helped shape the board riding world literally. Terramar Collective repurposes vintage flannels and rare finds, blending timeless style with surf heritage. Honor the past, wear the story. Find us on Instagram at Terramar Collective.
GYG has just reinvented the Caesar with our new Caesar salad, Caesar burrito, and Caesar Cali burrito. And I bet you didn't know that Caesar was created in Tijuana, Mexico over 100 years ago by Caesar Cardini. And now we have made the Caesar uniquely GYG.
Crunchy Cos lettuce, free-range grilled chicken, or gourmet Caesar dressing, shredded jack cheese, and GYG's corn chips crushed. GYG Caesar, created in Mexico, reinvented by GYG.
When it comes to building your dream pool, experience matters. For 33 years, Freestyle Pools Sydney has delivered quality pools that stand the test of time. Brothers Rob and Ben personally manage every job from start to finish, working closely with skilled, reliable tradies who take pride in their work. With regular industry award-winning builds, the quality of Freestyle Pools truly stands out. Experience, craftsmanship, and service you can trust. Freestyle Pools Sydney, built for life.